Welcome to EPG Pathshala in Computer Science. This is a series of modules in computer networks. We have come to the last module in computer networks. So, we will be winding up by looking at some latest technologies which are related to networks. So, we will take a look at Internet of Things, the technologies associated with that. Then we will take a look at something called software defined networks, which is again a latest technology with respect to networks. And then of course, we will do a wrap up of whatever we have done on this in this course. Okay. So, we will start with IoT, then we will move to SDN and then a complete wrap up. Okay. So, what is the Internet of Things? So, this is a term that all of you must be very familiar with now, because almost every company out there is talking about Internet of Things. And so, we are talking about a situation where you could just, for instance, things are all talking to each other. So, you have a house which tells itself to a person about all its features. So, it says if I have to sell a house, I can just put all the necessary information in the things in my house. They themselves will talk to the user and say that these are the things that I have, these are my features. Okay. So, that's the kind of technology we are talking about. So, more formal definition of this Internet of Things, it's called as IoT. So, you can say it's a network that realizes intelligent identification, location, tracking, monitoring and management of objects. So, what do you mean by object? This object could be a real object or it could be a virtual object. Okay. And how does it make this happen? By connecting anything with the internet, okay, to exchange information and communicate. Okay. So, which means we are talking about connecting not just computers to one another, which is what the internet does, right, and through that humans to one another. But now we are talking about things being connected to one another, things talking to humans, okay, and things talking to machines and so on. So, it basically includes many objects, preferably smart objects, which are connected and which communicate effectively with people on the internet to help solve the problems of the world. So, that is the idea that we are expecting IoT to do. Okay. This is the overall understanding as such of IoT, and it is with this understanding that it has been evolving. So, we had a old IoT dream kind of thing in the 90s, right. So, where we talked about different devices, and we were just talking about devices should be able to talk to each other. Okay. That was one of the things that it was started off with. But there were no people in the loop, okay, but now that has changed. So, now what we are talking about today is you have the cloud, right, you have the cloud and mobiles, and we have sensors, clouds and mobile all connected up together, okay. So, and obviously there are people connected to this. So, you have people, you have different sensors which may be on different objects, it may be the objects themselves or it may be different sensors on the objects that are used by a person, okay. All these are interconnected by means of the cloud, right, and so sensors connected by means of a cloud and which can be accessed or which can information about which can be accessed through your mobiles. Okay. So, that is the kind of scenario that we are kind of talking about today. Okay. So, there are different standards that have evolved as a part of this, and IEEE, which is the standards body which is responsible for many standards, right. So, they came up with this idea of how do you define a thing. So, because you are talking about Internet of Things. So, how do you define this thing? Okay. So, they came up with this particular definition which says that things, apps and services can be integrated into what would be abstracted as a thing. So, it is not just an object, but it can be an app, it can be a service, which is why I said physical or virtual thing. Okay. And information exchange could be horizontal, right, could be a subscribe publish mode, or it could be vertical or both. And the properties could be real or virtual. So, that is the kind of a thing that we are talking about. Okay. So, we have moved from just getting some personal information by means of these sensors to thriving on big data that is being collected from various sensors. So, we are now talking about, when we say IoT, IoT is no longer dissociated from big data as such, because now you have so many sensors that are going to be in place which are connected to the internet and which will be connected to the cloud, and you will have so much of data that these sensors are collecting and sending to the cloud, so that you can do a lot of processing on them, on the big data that is available, and you can make intelligent decisions which are useful for various applications. That is the idea. Okay. So, you can have an internet of recreation, you can have an internet of sports, internet of play, internet of well-being, internet of arts, okay, different things that become possible. So, if you look at when this IoT actually started picking up, right. So, you will find that in about 2003, the number of connected devices per person, okay, the number of devices that we are carrying or the ones that we have, okay. So, that started increasing. Okay, it was about in 2003 it was about 0.08. By 2010 it became about 1.84. Okay, so you can see if the world population was 6.8 billion, the connected devices population number is about 12.5 billion. Okay, so more number of devices than the number of people who are connected. And 2015 it's at the range of 3.47. Okay, 2020 it's expected to go up to 6.58. So you can see how it is no longer about people being connected, it's more about things being connected. Okay, so there's a dimensional change that is taking place here. So earlier we used to talk about any place connection and any time connection. Okay, so any place connection would mean that it could be from a PC, it could be indoors, outdoors, on the move, and so on. Any time connection, again it could be daytime, nighttime, outdoors, indoors, on the move, okay, any time connection. Now we are talking about any thing connection. So which means it could be between PCs, it could be between human to human, not using a PC, it can be human to thing, H to T, okay, or it could be thing to thing, T to T. Okay, so any thing connection. This is the new dimension now that is being brought in with the help of this IoT. So bringing something called anything can be connected. So again looking at the IEEE standard, so they've identified a framework, an architectural framework which can be used for multiple applications. So the applications that are being looked at are healthcare, home and building, retail, energy, manufacturing, mobility, transportation, logistics, media, okay, all these are the different things. And you have different stakeholders here, okay, hospitals and doctors, insurance companies, appliance providers, okay, retail stores, utilities, automation equipment providers, manufacturing industries, city authorities, public transport companies, logistic companies, regulators, consumers, consumer equipment providers. So you can see that starting from lay persons to big organizations and all types of markets, right. Everywhere there is a place for IoT, so which is why we are expecting IoT to be the major technology in the next few years. So basically we are talking about everything getting smarter, right. Smart home for smart people. So you will have a camera, you will have your curtains could be smart, your garden could be smart, right. Anything and everything that you have in your home could be smart. Okay. More smarts that people are looking at could be a smart bathroom cabinet for medicine, smart refrigerator, smart traffic, smart history in museums, smart health, RFID in running shoes, smart buying, okay, using near field communication, use your smartphone to make payments. All these are smart technologies that have already started coming in, okay, that is enabled by this IoT technology as such. So what are the technologies we need for this IoT to happen? Okay, there are two sets of technologies that we can look at. One is for identifying, sensing and communication. So a thing has to identify something, sense some information and communicate it. So we need some technologies for that. And then once the data is collected, right, it has to be stored in the cloud, so we need cloud, and some data analytics has to be done on that, so big data analytics, okay. So these are things that we need. So when you talk of identification, sensing and communication, so it could leverage existing technologies such as wireless technologies, for instance RFID, right, and then WSNs, which is wireless sensor networks. Now 802.15.4 Zigbee is something which is also used in wireless sensor networks. So those are existing technologies. You could integrate these two and you can have identification, sensing and communication done using what are called as RSNs. So RFID sensing networks as such, okay. So you can have a combination of these. So with this kind of technology and big data analytics and cloud, you should be able to make things possible. Now looking at this part, the identification, sensing and communication a little deeper, okay. So as we said, we may require RFIDs and then you require power for sensors. Now there are sensors that are available, but you need to power these sensors, right. So how is it that we are going to power them? Mobile and smartphones, nanoscience and miniaturizing, because we are talking about sensors, multiple sensors, thousands of sensors all over the place. It could be inside your body, it could be outside your body, it could be on your body, right, that is possible, or anywhere in the environment, right. So in which case we need miniaturization. So nanoscience and miniaturization is another enabling technology here. And then smart objects and robotics. So intelligence, right, bringing in intelligence into the objects, robotics, okay, these are other enabling technologies. And then machine to machine communication, because you need machines to be also able to talk to each other. And we need standardization of protocols for security, for IPv6, 6LoWPAN, Zigbee and so on, okay. So these are some things that are required. So this is just a reference architecture that has been proposed for IoT. So ideally what you would have is, you will have different devices, right. Devices could be your cell phone, or it could be your car, or or some wireless device, or your Arduino boards that are used to construct these devices, okay, your home and device which could be anywhere over here. Okay, this is basically some sensing that is happening, and these devices will communicate using protocols such as MQTT, HTTP and so on, and there will be an aggregation or a business layer which is responsible for getting all this information, and then there will be an event processing and analytics layer which is responsible for the analytics part, okay, and that should be made available to users using web portals or a dashboard or using some APIs for other management and so on. So, this is how people are now looking at building IoT based systems. And of course, you will have a device manager which is responsible for these three functions, and there will be an identity and access management which is spread across these different layers that we have here, right. So, this is basically what we have. So, many manufacturers and many service providers, right, are into this area of IoT, and you have people working at various levels, okay, and many new protocols and new services are being provided by them. So, if you look at the protocol stack, now we are obviously interested in from a networking perspective. From a networking perspective, if you see the differences that we have in the protocol stack, there are new protocols being introduced at the link layer, network layer and at the application layer. Now, in your normal TCP IP at the application layer, we have HTTP, FTP, SMTP and so on. Here for the IoT based network, so we have a new protocol called CoAP, which is called as a constrained application protocol. This the reason why it is a constrained application protocol is that this is meant to work on things where you have limited amount of processing capability, limited amount of battery and so on, right. So, you have a constrained application protocol which works on top of UDP. UDP is the preferred transport layer protocol rather than TCP, because you want to keep things light, the processing has to be simpler. So, it is UDP. And at the network layer, we have something called 6LoWPAN, which is basically an adaptation of the IPv6 protocol for low power PAN networks. And at the link layer, the recommended protocol is 802.15.4e, okay, rather than using 802.3 or 11. Okay, this is the recommended protocol stack for IoT. Okay. So, there are a lot of interesting things that are being done at each of these in each of these protocols. So, those are things that will be good for you to kind of check out. Okay. So, that is about the IoT protocol as such. Now, we move on to the next topic that we mentioned, which is software defined networks. Okay. So, we will take a look at what is meant by software defined networks. We look at the architecture and we look at some associated protocols again. Okay. So, to understand this motivation or the idea behind SDN, so we need to first take a look at the current network hardware. So, now we looked at a whole lot of networking protocols and other things, right, and we also looked at how routers look like and what is it that will go inside a router and so on, right. So, if you look at this, if you look at the current network hardware that we have today, you will find that it basically is supposed to have something like this, that that's your routers and switches and so on, right. So, there will be some specialized packet forwarding hardware, and then there will be an operating system, right, which is running on top of that hardware, and there will be multiple applications which are supported. So, when I talk of applications here, we are talking about applications which are used for routing, management, mobility management, access control, VPNs and so on. See, these are the network related applications which have to be supported on the networking hardware. Okay. And this app plus this operating system normally is millions of lines of source code. Okay, there are some 5,400 RFCs or maybe even 6,000 RFCs that are used which specify these the various standards for this. Okay, so, it is very difficult for anybody to get into this market and start doing anything there. And if you look at the specialized packet processing, the forwarding hardware, it is of the order of about 500 million gates, 10 gigabytes of RAM, very RAM intensive, okay, it is bloated, very power hungry, okay, lots of power consumption happens in these routers and switches, okay. So, there are many complex functions which are kind of baked into the infrastructure, okay, all your OSPF, BGP, multicast, diffserv, traffic engineering, NAT, firewalls, MPLS, everything, like all these functions are all kind of interconnected together, kind of all baked together. And the mentality is more of what you call as a mainframe mentality. So, everything, put everything in one place, keep everything in one place, so on, okay, that is the kind of idea that is used, okay. But, so this is what is expected, right, but in reality, let us look at how these things actually fit in with each other. So, you expect this interface to be a perfect fit, right, but actually what happens is, if your specialized packet hardware is something like this, you have an operating system which really does not fit well with that, and then you have different applications running on that, which really do not fit very well with this operating system. You can look at it like a jigsaw puzzle, right? They do not really fit neatly. Okay. So, the disadvantages that we have because of this situation basically is that it is not suitable for experimental ideas, and it is not good for network owners and users in terms of building new things or adding new technology, and not good for researchers because they can't really play around with things, okay, and come up with some new technologies. Okay. So, and most of these things happen to be very proprietary. Okay. So, it is very vertically integrated, complex, closed, so not possible for people to work with these kind of systems. Okay. Right. So, we are looking at what can be done to make it better. Okay. So, that is where this motivation basically comes from. So, if you look at the computer industry in the last few years, there has been a lot of talk about virtualization, right. So, what is this virtualization? You have your basic x86 computer, then you put a layer called a virtualization layer above that, and then we say different operating systems can be run on top of that. It could be a Windows OS or a Linux or a Mac OS, and I can have their own applications running on these different operating systems. All this is possible by means of putting one virtualization layer, right, below these things, right, or just above the hardware. Okay. So, now the idea is, can we do a similar thing for the network industry as well, which means, so just as you have your x86 computer or whatever, which is the hardware, so similarly I will have my switches, they are the hardware, they are responsible for forwarding function. And now, if I can put a vertical virtualization or a slicing layer in between and have different network operating systems that can be run on top of that and allow different applications to be built on those network operating systems, okay, I will have something which is very similar to this. Now, what is the advantage I will get? I will get flexibility of being able to come up with different operating systems to suit different applications, or different applications to suit different operating systems, and I can kind of separate the operating system that is there from the basic hardware that is there. So, that fit that we have between these two, we can try to make it better, that is the idea. Okay. So, the idea of virtualization applied to networking. So, okay, how can that be made possible? So, that is what brings in this idea of a software defined network. So, you can see that the moment I bring in this virtualization, right, and application, so now this application will control how this network will actually function. So, the software will control the functioning of the network. So, that is what we mean by software defined network. Okay. So, let us look at what the software defined network basically can be constructed as. So, what did we say? So, we saw that every router, right, or a switch, you can see, will have all these things. It will have a specialized packet hardware, there is an operating system, and it will have some applications running on it. Okay. This is, and they are all interconnected. So, the normal setup that we have. So, what we would like to do is remove the operating system part from each of these and bring it out as a separate network operating system. So, all the network operating systems are combined together to form a separate layer. Okay. Similarly, all the applications you remove from here and put them on top of this network operating system. Okay. Application running on this network operating system. So, what is it that I have now as my basic hardware? I will only have the packet forwarding function being performed by the switches. Okay. So, that is the basic idea, right. So, now, so we will have these applications running on the network operating system, and this the applications now through the network operating system will control how these different simple packet forwarding hardwares, okay, are supposed to operate, right. So, what we are saying therefore is, make these packet forwarding hardware very simple, okay, have only the packet forwarding function over there, and how is it supposed to do that packet forwarding function? That information will come from the network operating system and the application. Okay. And where will this be running? It need not be running on the same switch itself, it can be running somewhere else. Okay. So, which means from somewhere else I can control how this hardware is actually going to function. Okay. That is what we want to facilitate. So, now, but between this operating system and this packet forwarding hardware, we need to have a proper interface, right. So, I need an open interface to this hardware, okay, that is important. And at the network operating, at least I need one good operating system which is extensible, possibly open source, and I need to have a well defined API between the network operating system and the different applications, so that the applications can use this functionality quite well. Okay. So, how is that basically done? Okay. So, we have the packet forwarding hardware, and there is a virtualization or slicing layer that we talked about, right, the open interface to hardware. And then we have the network operating system that is provided. We have multiple operating systems and different applications running on top of that. And as we said, this will give me an open interface to the hardware, right, between these two, and that, and you can have isolated slices. So, you can have multiple operating systems, right, which are separated out, right, and I can have many operating systems, many versions. Okay, all these things will become possible. So, all these could be simultaneously acting, and you could choose which of these you actually want to be implemented on the hardware. Okay. So, we are looking for the flexibility that software normally has, right. So, we are trying to provide that flexibility with respect to these networking devices. So, the consequences of this kind of a software defined network architecture basically is that it allows multiple innovation to take place in network services, because now owners, operators, third party developers, researchers, everybody can try to develop new applications and can try to improve the network, okay, more in terms of energy management, data center management, policy routing, access control, denial of service, mobility. All these things you can come up with your own policies or your own algorithms for doing these things. So, you can experiment with networks, okay, it becomes easy for network people or network researchers to be able to play around with things much better. Okay. And it is a lower barrier to entry for competition, because no longer huge equipment manufacturers who are actually the network players. Now, it gives a chance for multiple smaller players also to enter the market and come up with their own services. Okay. That is the advantage of this new technology. Okay. So, with this new technology built in, you can see how traditional network routers, okay, how they become different. Now, if you look at the routers, okay, we normally say that the routers will have two planes. It's called as the control plane and the data plane. That is, the functions of the router can basically be divided into a control plane and a data plane. So, we actually, in fact, we talk about three planes: a management plane, which is used for configuring the route devices, and then we have a control plane, which basically runs protocols like OSPF, which is responsible for taking decisions, and then we have the data plane, which is responsible for forwarding packets. Right. So, this is basically how complicated the whole thing will be. So, you have this data plane here, right, and which has the forwarding table and so on, and then you have the control plane, which may be running OSPF, talking to neighboring routers, okay, doing all kinds of things, and then the management policy plane, which will take care of the configuration information. Okay. So, now similarly, if you look at a traditional network node, okay, it will have an Ethernet switch. If you take if we looked at router, now we are looking at a simple layer 2 switch. A layer 2 switch, for instance, will probably have a data path, a hardware and a control path, software. Okay. So, this is what we will have. So, now with this SDN in place, so what are we going to do to these routers and switches? We said that all the software running on it will be moved outside, right. It will be moved to something called a controller. So, now what will actually happen is that in this SDN concept, what we are doing is we are separating the control plane and the data plane. Okay. So, all the information that is required for network intelligence, whatever state is to be maintained and so on, all that is part of the control plane activity. So, all that is taken out of the device and centralized, logically centralized in some other device. So, the underlying network infrastructure, okay, is then therefore abstracted from the application. So, the underlying network infrastructure is only meant for forwarding packets. Okay. And your control plane software can run on some other machine, right. It can even be a general purpose hardware. You do not even need specialized hardware for that. So, the specific or the special purpose networking hardware will remain only on the switches and routers. It need not be there on the control plane related equipment. Okay. So, you can use commodity servers for doing the control plane software. And you can have programmable data planes. So, you can have maintain, control and program the data plane state from a central entity. Okay. And you have an architecture to control not just a networking device, but you can control the entire network, because you can control each of the switches that are there, and thereby you can control how the entire network is expected to function. Right? That is the concept that is used. So, what do we expect? Therefore, you can see this is what you will have. So, you will have some network operating system, right, and multiple applications running on top of this. So, I could have a routing application, for instance. So, when the routing application is running, right, you can see that it may be this network, the one that is coded in green. So, this device and this device, that will be the network that will be used. So, you will have these three devices, these three forwarding switches which are actually connected for the purpose of routing. So, traffic engineering would be the orange one. So, it is this device, the one on the right and the one below. Okay. These are the ones that are connected for traffic engineering. So, for some other application, maybe all the four that are connected. So, you can see that you can have different views of the network for different applications. So, what we end up actually is in the network virtualization that we wanted to have, right. You can look at the network, you can have multiple virtual networks that are actually being used for different applications. Physical network is different, is the same, but virtually they can be different networks that you could look at them as. Okay. So, you have only the data plane here, all the control plane has gone up. So, you have this clear separation of the data plane and the control plane. Now, if you look at the protocol-wise SDN reference model as such, so you can see what is happening here. We have the data plane. Now, the data plane is on the devices, on the switches, and then we have the control plane which is there on a controller. So, this control plane you can see will have a hypervisor or a flow visor or the virtualization layer, okay, and they can have different controller software running on it, and this in turn would provide services for different applications to run. So, you can have application specific, an ASP1, ASP2, ASP3 and so on. And between the control plane and the applications, you have a well defined API which is called the northbound API, and between the control plane and the data plane, right, over here you have a southbound API. Okay. The standard that has been proposed for this is what is called as the open flow standard. That is the one that is being used for the southbound API. And of course, you also have east-west API which is for different controllers to talk to one another. Okay. So, with this clear separation of the functions, okay, into layers, and you can see that there are different layers. We have an application layer, network layer and the forwarding hardware layer, but they are on different devices. This data plane, this forwarding hardware, this is on a separate hardware, it is on a switch. The control plane related information is all there on a controller. Okay. The separation is what we have. So, now coming to this open flow, this controller to switch communication, now that becomes very important, right, because it is only through this communication that you can actually control how this entire hardware is going to function. So, the protocol that has been proposed for that is what is called as the open flow protocol. So, this is the protocol that will be used between the network OS and the open flow controls and the switches. So, so open flow is basically based on the Ethernet switch, and it will have an internal what is called as a flow table, okay, and a standardized interface, so that you can add and remove entries which will control how this device is supposed to forward packets. Okay. So, we have what are called as flow entries. So, these flow entries determine the rules that will be used by the switches to forward packets. So, opennetworking.org is the where the standard is proposed. So, you have your control path, right, which is specified. You have the open flow which will be running on this, and then you will have the data path, that is the hardware as such. So, this is what we expect to see. Right. So, this is your open flow switch, right, and the open flow switch would be controlled by means of a controller using the open flow protocol, okay. And this open flow protocol itself will run on a secure channel, because we do not want anybody to come and make changes to your switch, right. So, it will be running on top with secure SSL, and so it will keep track of all the flow tables, flow entries and so on, okay. So, the controller will be responsible for sending the open flow control protocol messages, controlling the channel and doing whatever processing is required, pipeline processing, packet matching, okay, and so on, right. So, that is, and setting up the instructions and the action set. So, what is the action to be taken by a switch, that has to be specified by the controller. So, let us take a quick look at the open flow protocol, right, and its basics as such. So, as we said, the network operating system now, the controller will install flow tables in this packet forwarding hardware. So, what will these flow tables look like? It may have some rules, right, which will say if header is equal to P, send it to port number 4. That can be a simple rule. Or it may be something like if header is equal to Q, then you override that header with R, okay, add another header S to it and send it to ports 5 and 6. Okay, it could be something like that. Or it may be something like if you can't understand what that header is, send it to me, which means that packet will come to the controller and then the controller can decide what is to be done with that particular packet. Okay. So, like this you will have flexibility of specifying what you want to do with different types of packets. So, complete flexibility of specifying how to deal with packets is there at the controller. Now, coming to the rules that are there, right, we said that there are flow rules. Now, what do the rules look like? The rules normally are of the form of match comma action, that is you look at the header of the packet, you match for a particular bit pattern, okay, look for a particular bit pattern and see if it matches with whatever pattern you have. If it matches, then you specify an action that is to be taken, okay. So, you can match on any of the header bits or you can add a new header also, okay, and at any flow granularity you can check this, okay. And the action that you can specify for this, right, it could be like maybe something like forward to a port or drop the packet or send to a controller, okay. And you could have actions also like override the header with a mask, push it or pop or whatever, or forward a specified bit rate. So, like this you can have different actions that can be specified. So, if you look at the in a switch, right, there will be multiple flows can be there, you can have multiple rules can be specified. You can have a rule specified, the action for it and the statistics for it. So, this is basically how the flow table will be maintained in each of the open flow controlled switches and routers. So you will have rule and the action to be specified, and also some statistics will be collected about how many times this particular rule was activated, how many times you have, or whatever information you want to maintain about the packets that are flowing through that switch. That is maintained as the statistics information. So the flow entry, as I said, it consists of a match field and an action field and some statistics. So these are the three things, right? So you can see the match fields, okay, just an example of the match field. The match field, we said, can be any field in your header. So we can see starting from the in port, right, the physical port on which it is coming in, to the source MAC address, destination MAC address, Ethernet type, VLAN ID, IP type of service, all IP, layer 3 header, right, layer 2 header, layer 3 header, IP protocol, IP source, IP destination, layer 4 header, TCP source port, TCP destination port, any of these can be part of your match fields. So you can say, based on this, you can have action which says forward packet to port or encapsulate and forward to controller, drop packet, send to the normal processing pipeline, any rule we can action we can specify. And statistics here may be something like how many packets have gone through this rule or how many bytes have been transferred using this rule and so on. So this is an example of how I can use these bit patterns to do whatever function I want. Okay. So let's say I want to do a switching, right, a simple layer 2 switch. Now what is the layer 2 switch expected to? It's expected to look at a MAC destination address and forward it to a particular port. So that's all I need to specify. So I can have a simple rule specified which says I don't worry about all the other fields. I only look at the MAC destination field and look for a particular bit pattern there. If that matches, I will send it to port number 6. Similarly, you can have something called a flow switch, right. So a flow switch similarly, depending on a particular flow, right, I can look for this particular port, this particular MAC address, this particular destination address, can specify all these fields and say if all these things match, then you send it to this. Or I can have a firewall which says if it is coming from if it is for a particular destination port, just drop the packet. Okay. So like this you can see different levels of rules, right, different types of applications can be executed with by specifying these rules. Okay. This is the beauty of this open flow technique. So as an example of the usage, you can see anything can be done. So I can have my own code. User Peter can have his own Peter's code running at a controller, and using that he can control the different devices and have data transmitted the way he wants. Okay, he can write his own rules and actions to determine how his data is to be transmitted through the network. So there are many such examples of usages that you can have. So you can have your own code or my own code, right? You can have static VLANs, you can have new routing protocols, you can have network access control, you can have your own home network manager, you can have a mobility manager, right? Energy manager, packet processor, network measurement, various examples are there. Okay. So all these are now becoming possible with this SDN technology. Okay, right. So now coming to the end of the course, so we'll just take a quick look at the various things that we have looked at in this course, right? If you remember, we started off with the top-down approach where we started off with some applications, typical web-based applications. Then we moved on to looking at the transport layer in detail. So we looked at the UDP and the TCP protocol in detail, especially congestion control and other things we looked at in fair amount of detail. And then we moved to the network layer where we looked at the IPv4 functionality, and we also looked at other functionalities at the network layer, IPv6, how multicasting is supported, and how quality of service is provided in IP. Okay. And we also looked at additional protocols which are used for quality of service, namely diffserv protocol, intserv protocol, RSVP, MPLS and so on. So these different things that happen at the network layer we looked at in fair amount of detail. And armed with this knowledge of the network layer in terms of how the network layer is able to provide quality of service, we went back looking at the applications which demand this kind of quality of service. So we looked at multimedia applications, and we saw that there are another set of protocols which have evolved between the network layer and the multimedia application layer, which have been designed to support multimedia applications, right, on top of the IP network that we have. So RTP, RTCP, SIP, SDP, these are all a set of protocols that we looked at for supporting multimedia applications. So then we moved on to looking at the wireless scenario. So again we came down from the down to the other layer, that is the MAC layer, physical layer and so on. So we looked at the 802, in fact we looked at the MAC layer, we have not really looked much at the physical layer, we will look predominantly at the MAC layer. And we looked at different technologies that are used in the wireless scenario. So 802.11, Bluetooth, Zigbee, okay, and of course we looked at cellular technologies in detail. And to get an overview of current technologies, we also looked at two emerging technologies, which is IoT and SDN, which is what we covered in today's lecture. Okay. So with this overview of whatever we have done in this course, if you try to recollect various things that we have done, you will see that we've not just looked at a basic information, but we've looked at some of the details which are required for understanding how networks are built and how networks have to be designed. So, I would say we've looked at something like network engineering in a fair amount of detail. So, equipped with this kind of knowledge that you have, that you should have gained by going through these lectures, I think you will be in a very good position to be able to design and manage different types of networks. Wish you all the very best, and thank you.